I never thought about Hull until I was here. Having got here, it suits me in many ways. It is a little on the edge of things. I think even its natives would say that. I rather like being on the edge of things. One doesn't really go anywhere by design, you know. You put in for jobs and move about, you know. I've lived in other places, born in Coventry.
Swerving east from rich industrial shadows and traffic all night north, swerving through fields too thin and thistled to be called meadows, and now and then a harsh-named halt that shields workmen at dawn, swerving to solitude of skies and scarecrows, haystacks, hares and pheasants, and the widening river's slow presence, the piled gold clouds, the shining gull-marked mud, gathers to the surprise of a large town. Here domes and statues, spires and cranes cluster beside grain-scattered streets, barge-crowded water, and residents from raw estates brought down the dead straight miles by stealing flat-faced trolleys, push through plate-glass swing doors to their desires. Cheap suits, red kitchenware, sharp shoes, iced lollies, electric mixers, toasters, washers, dryers. A cut-price crowd, urban yet simple, dwelling where only salesmen and relations come, within a terminate and fishy-smelling pastoral of ships up streets, the slave museum, tattoo shops, consulates, grim, headscarfed wives, and out beyond its mortgaged, half-built edges, fast-shadowed wheat fields, running high as hedges, isolate villages, where removed lives loneliness clarifies. Here silence stands like heat. Here leaves unnoticed thicken, hidden weeds flower, neglected waters quicken, luminously peopled air ascends, and past the poppy's bluish neutral distance ends the land suddenly beyond a beach of shapes and shingle. Here is unfenced existence, facing the sun, untalkative, out of reach. Here silence stands like heat. And here I'm standing on the coast of Lincolnshire, Tennyson's county, where everything's three-quarters sky, and which he writes about in his long rolling lines, Tennyson's county. And across there, over the estuary of the Humber, is Yorkshire, and you can just see Hull, where Philip Larkin lives, who wrote that poetry. It's a place of thunder, clouds, dark red brick Georgian streets where they survive, and steeples and domes. And beyond Hull was the North Sea. If anywhere's the end of England and the end of land, it's Hull and beyond Hull. The history that leads up to Philip Larkin's Hull is really fascinating. And then, for our own civilization, you get chain stores and new estates, a new, flimsy, packaged architecture for the housewife. Nothing like the old Hull. And it's the combination of them both that Philip Larkin gets into his poems. The large, cool store selling cheap clothes, set out in simple sizes plainly, knitwear, summer casuals, hose, in browns and greys, maroon and navy, conjures the weekday world of those who leave at dawn low terraced houses timed for factory, yard and site. But past the heaps of shirts and trousers spread the stands of modes for night, machine embroidered, thin as blouses, lemon, sapphire, moss green, rose, bry nylon, baby dolls and shorties, flounce in clusters. To suppose they share that world, to think their sort is matched by something in it, shows how separate and unearthly love is, or women are, or what they do, or in our young, unreal wishes seem to be, synthetic, new, and natureless in ecstasies.
Taking it all in all, work and I get on fairly well, I think. There are just these occasions when one would like to prove it by not working for a bit. And to feel that you're spending your life on the one rather than the other, I think, is perhaps the most depressing thought that work can bring you. When I bind up the library committee minutes at the end of 5 years, it makes a great fat volume. But it's not the same as a volume of poetry. They're very good minutes, but the minute as an art form has its limitations. When getting my nose in a book cured most things short of school, it was worth ruining my eyes to know I could still keep cool and deal out the old right hook to dirty dogs twice my size. Later, with inch-thick specs, evil was just my lark. Me and my cloak and fangs had ripping times in the dark. The women I clubbed with sex, I broke them up like meringues. Don't read much now. The dude who lets the girl down before the hero arrives, the chap who's yellow and keeps the store, seem far too familiar. Get stewed. Books are a load of crap.
I envy you, very much, being a librarian. I think it'd be a marvellous thing to have a job to fall back on.
It forces you to think about something other than yourself, something other than your own poems, and that is positively good for you, I think, even as a poet. And secondly, of course, and the whole business releases you from that awful pressure that I imagine you must feel sometimes of just having to write something to carry on living.
My goodness, it is a pressure. And one of the most unpleasant things about it is one puts everything one's got into writing a poem, and then you get knocked by the Friday Pharisee or the Sunday prig, and I'm ill for weeks after it. I mind so much, and I'm always expected to be something I'm not, or not as good as I was before. What sort of attitude do you take to adverse criticism?
Well, I don't know if you feel this, but I feel it very strongly. I read that, I'm a miserable sort of fellow writing a kind of welfare state sub-poetry. Doing it well, perhaps, but it isn't really what poetry is, and it isn't